transgender women athletes should be allowed to compete against other women?
It is viewed as unfair, and more than likely, more women athletes will speak out.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, and I too would like to welcome you to today's American Religious Town Hall meeting session. So glad you've joined us. We're looking forward to this discussion. It's a little different from some of the others that we have had around this table, but it's timely and important. Before we get started, I'd like for the participants to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do. Let's start with the gentleman to my right.
I am Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, and I'm canonically resident in the Diocese of Washington, D.C.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve as senior minister at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
Hi, I'm Carl Troval. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews, and I serve as senior pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
I'm Andrea Luxton. I'm president of Andrews University in Berrien Springs, Michigan, which is affiliated with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
I'm Dan Levin. I'm the senior rabbi at Temple Bethel in Boca Raton, Florida.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say on this particular subject, transgendered athletes. Is it fair? That is our subject for today, and I'm glad you're here for it, and thank you for joining us. Let's get started. By definition, a good sport is a person who is not rude or angry about losing. However, in the real world of sports, many people, and women in particular, are expressing their anger over transgendered women winning sports competitions. For example, according to Ben Fordham, an Australian sports reporter, Cece, a transgender woman who used to go by Craig, is a college athlete who competed in the 400-meter women's hurdles and won. Australia's 3X Games gold medalist Tamsin Manu is frustrated as she feels that many women can't speak out about the issue. She says, quote, "The female category isn't being protected enough in the elite women's sport of the moment. There is just way too much advantage with a male competing against a female," close quote. And some would argue that even if hormone treatment is involved, it still might be unfair. In a separate case, the Christian Broadcasting Network wrote an article titled, "Against the Girls He Easily Came in First, Trans Sprinter Wins Girls Track Meet." This story is about Andrea, a 15-year-old freshman at a high school in Connecticut who identifies as a girl, competes in track, and won the girls' 100-meter and 200-meter dashes in state championships. A female athlete at Stonington High School who won the girls' 100-meter placed second to Andrea and was emotionally upset about the results. She says, quote, "It's frustrating, but that's just the way it is now," close quote. She goes on to say that "I can't really say what I want to say, but there's not much I can do about it," close quote. In light of this issue, we're asking our panelists to consider these questions. First of all, is it fair for transgendered women to compete against women in track and field? A second question, if a sports organization was formed for the sole purpose of allowing transgendered athletes to compete, is that discrimination, or is it a solution to a challenging problem? And then finally, in Galatians 3, verse 28, it says there that in regards to our oneness in Christ, there is neither male nor female. How does your faith organization understand this verse, and does it apply to this topic? Well, that's our subject for today. Let's return now to those who helped to begin the program. For that, we go back to Canon Peterson. Welcome to the program. And you're advocating for transgendered women to be able to compete against other women, correct?
Yes.
All right. Tell us more about that.
I'm going to divide my response into two parts. First off, I'm going to talk about the basic issue here, and then later on in the program, I hope to be able to take up the third point on Galatians 3:28, because I think that's a very important part of our discussion today, but not dealing specifically with this issue. I'm going to quote James Bartlett, from the president of the British Association of Gender Identity. And he said, what you really need and what we are working on at this moment is real data. Then you can have what you might call a debate. At the moment, it is just an awful lot of opinion. In other words, Dr. Barnett is arguing that we do not have enough data here yet to be able to come to conclusions in relationship to this subject. A lot of, as he said, lots of opinion. One of the real issues that we are having to discuss here is the difference between men and women, and the difference between the amount of testosterone that men have in relationship to women. And this is a whole biological consideration that actually means looking at and how does one deal with testosterone between men and women. Healthy men have about 20 times as much levels of testosterone in their body in contrast to a healthy woman. So the whole issue here really boils down to testosterone. The International Olympic Committee guidelines state that transgender athletes can compete if their testosterone levels are become more equally between men and women. Between 2004 and 2016, trans athletes could compete in the Olympics if they had undergone surgery on their genitals. In other words, removing of the genitals and moving into the womanhood. Since 2016, however, female athletes who were males no longer have to have the reassignment surgery, but they need to demonstrate lower testosterone levels. So now today, it's just through pills and shots to be able to lower it. Now, this is way above my pay grade, let me assure you. But what we are looking at here is that whole issue of should men who have now become a woman be able to actually participate in women's events. And we've seen already in the moderator's statement the conflict that we have at that situation.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. You took a little different position on this. And
yes.
if you could, again, qualify your opening statement and say more about it.
It's good being here, and my position is a little different. There's so many young ladies across the country, and I've read so many, just a plethora of articles where people like the lady we mentioned in the moderator's statement, she says that it's very frustrating, and she can't really say what she would like to say because she's competing against transgendered females, and they're losing. So I think data is very important, and at the same time, in addition to that, the data, we know that we have young ladies who are losing in these competitions. And so I think there's a biological benefit given at birth that will always be there with men if they transition or not. I think that's a key thing. Second, ladies should be able to compete on a level playing field. I just don't think the playing field is level. I'm a former athlete. The older I get, the better I was, though. But I am a former athlete, and I do know that, just from a biological standpoint, to have a to be in a male body competing with a lady in track and field or weightlifting, there's going to be an advantage there. And I think the ladies are just becoming spectators at their own sport, and it's sad to read how they feel demoralized before they even go out on the field to know that they're going to lose. And so I think this is it's a tough situation, and I think the second question, should something be formed for transgendered athletes? Want to make sure that, I know that's a sensitive question perhaps, but is that the solution? Maybe it is, but I do think that they should not compete with, there's an advantage there. And I won't wait for the data. I just believe, humbly speaking, that there's an innate advantage there.
But you didn't
All right,
address
thank
the
you.
issue of testosterone, and if the testosterone levels are low enough.
Yeah, but these athletes, John, who were competing, my understanding is that they were taking hormone treatment, and they still won.
No, that's the
All right, so
addition
we're
of
going to
another
get
one.
there in a few moments. Let's come over to Dr. Troval, then we'll come to Tom. We've got an order here. I've been seeing your hands go up. Believe me, yes, please,
Well,
Carl.
first of all, you mentioned there's not enough data, and it's for that reason. He's listening to all the information that we've been provided today. This is something I don't know what my opinion is, so I'm going to just put it right out there because I can understand both sides. The other thing is, I don't think that this is really a church issue. I think athletics is athletics, and I mean, I understand that church and gender and religion and gender, those are obviously questions we can talk about. But when it comes to policy about athletes and on the athletic field, I don't think any Bible verse applies to that. I think also that, you know, I understand what the problem is here and the situation, and, you know, we have this issue already. If you're in boxing, you have different weight classes. Wrestling, you have different weight classes. Does this mean we have to create, the sporting organizations need to create different classes for different kinds of competition based on hormone levels? I don't know. I don't know, but to me, it's obviously there needs to be some way of solving this problem.
All right, thank you. Reverend Plumley.
Yeah, I guess I just come down on this where I want to say that athletics is so far down the priority list that I'd want to say that when trans people are finally granted full rights to housing, to employment, you name it, then at that point we can start talking about what's fair in athletic competitions. It seems to me that the church needs to do more to say to transgender people, you are of value, you are a gift from God, you're a gift to the church. We need to learn how to connect to those people instead of forcing them to live away from us, to feel no connection to us or to God because of us. So when a church, I think, takes, or when a religious organization of any sort takes seriously scriptural witness to a God who welcomes especially those that the general society finds some problem with or rejects, I think that we're failing to connect in a way that's very important. And so I'd want to say, let's be far more fair to transgender folks before we even worry about this issue.
Thank you. Dr. Luxton, your thoughts on the subject today, please.
You know, I think I would disagree that this is far down the road, because it might be for transgendered equality, but I don't think it is for athletes. I mean, for athletes, this is huge. This is where their lives are. This is where they have put their energy and their passion, often for years and years and years. So I think for that group, at least, this is very important. And I'd like to draw the distinction between equality and equity. because I think there is a difference there. And we often talk about that when we talk about diversity issues. I mean, equality is everyone having the same. Equity is everyone having the same access to succeed. Right? And often when we look at it at, say, in universities and colleges, we talk about that. You know, it's because of someone's background, whether it's economic background or racial background or family background, do they need some, are they on an equal playing field with those that have had a different? And therefore, and if not, do we need to give them some opportunity for that equity to happen? Now, why is that relevant here? I think it's relevant here because I think it might be an equality issue to say that transgender females can race with females, but I'm not sure it's an equity issue. Because of the biological differences. I'm not sure just testosterone is the answer. I think there's more than testosterone that makes a biological difference here between how a transgender woman can perform with a woman. So I actually do have problems with it. I realize it's being wrestled with, and I think it's important for it to be wrestled with, because you don't want to discount transgender women from athletics, but I think you also need to make sure there is equity when it comes to accessing athletics for all females.
All right, thank you very much. And now Rabbi Levin, your thoughts on the subject, please.
So in Jewish mysticism, they talk about how did the world come into being? Because if God is all light, then why was it dark at the beginning? Where did the darkness come from? And so the story that's told is that in order for the world to come into being, God had to, and the Hebrew word is fun, tzimtzum, God had to participate in self-contraction to make room for the world. And wherever God contracted, there left a space of darkness into which the world could be born. And that's how we know that the world is created out of love, because when we diminish ourselves to make room for the other, that's a profound, intrinsic act of love. So I think to myself, what must it be like to be a transgendered person? What must it be like to live and to have to experience where you feel like the gender that is your physical anatomy doesn't jive with who you are in your spirit? And what must it take to someone to actually confront that reality and then to try to live one's life with authenticity? And I think about that, and then I think to myself, maybe those of us who have the privilege of being born into the gender identity that our spirits square with need to maybe do a little tzimtzum to make room for someone, whether it's on the athletic field or in society, as Reverend Plumley mentions, because of that sense of what sport is really all about, which is about not just who can be better and who can win, but about the fact at the end of the competition, we're all one family.
Thank you very much. Other comments on the subject, and let's come back to Dr. Matthews.
Well, I just, I'll quibble a little bit with Tom. With the relevancy of it, Andrea touched on it a little bit, because we have, a few weeks ago we talked about the Equality Act, and that's a current issue, and part of the Equality Act addresses the whole sports situation, and I'm also, I wonder why when we talk about transgendered lifestyles, if it's someone who says, okay, this may not be fair for people who are not transgendered, it's viewed perhaps maybe negatively, rather than I just think that's something that I notice quite a bit in churches and in society, is that if someone says, hey, yeah, that's this is an unfair act. You have young ladies who are not transgendered, and they're saying it's unfair to me, the way they were born, and they're competing against biological men. And somebody has to have a voice for that group as well. And I think there needs to be some balance on each side, rather than. And I'm not saying that anyone on the panel here is demonizing that thought, but I think there needs to be some balance there as well, because you do have people who are not transgendered who feel like they are being discriminated against as well, and they need a voice too.
It seems it's an emerging scientific study. Research, as you were suggesting, is ongoing and will probably continue. So who knows what the answer is ultimately going to be. But we have just a few seconds left. Did you want to make you held up your hand, Tom?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that we've been through a time in this nation where athletics was segregated by race out of fear that certain people had advantages because of the way they were built. We not only discovered that science was wrong, but morally we made a decision that the separation or segregation is wrong. I think this is not the same issue, but it's close.
That's all the time we have for this segment. I know some of us wish there were a little bit more time, but yes, but we do have summary statements coming, so you can save up for that if you care to do so. We're going to be back in just a few moments, I think. No, seriously, we'll be back in just a few moments. Stand by.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you for standing by. You have looked forward to these summations on this particular program. We're going to get there in just a few moments. But I first want to encourage you, as Mark has, to go to the website, and you can find more information about the Town Hall Estates. Wonderful organization that you'll want to learn about. Very caring and wonderful people who are servicing clients every day. But for the summation, we're going to start with Canon Peterson. You're first.
Yes, I'm going to deal with number 3 about the Galatian text. And I'm going to argue that there is neither male nor female, that is really a misunderstanding of the text if we're looking at it from that point of view. Because in the first century in which Paul is addressing at this point, that really meant the theological position behind that is what is called cosmopolitanism. And that is that it's not an earthly thing, but a cosmos. And so I do not think that, and don't have time to go into that, but I do not think that is an argument that one can use in relationship to this discussion.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Troval. Your summation.
I think there's clear moral issues here about fairness, justice, equity, equality, all of those things. I just don't think that this is the time to make these kinds of decisions. These are really going to be up to athletics and the various divisions as they work it out on their own.
All right, then Dr. Luxton.
I really like the image that Dan gave us, the rabbi gave us. I think that's a wonderful image. I think it's a great image to use in cases of where we have privilege. I'm just not 100% sure that this, I'm not sure that this is exactly a situation where it's clear that there's privilege one way or the other, because there's other people in that situation whose needs need to be considered. And I would just add that, this is not an issue if it was a transgendered male, right?
Interesting.
So I think we just need to keep that in mind too.
All right, thank you very much. Rabbi Levin, your summation, please.
I also played sports when I was a child, and I got used to losing quite a bit. And I think that the question of what makes something fair is a really important theological question. And I guess I would take issue with the title of the Christian Broadcasting Network's article, because I think it should have been titled, "Against the Girls She Came Easily in First." Because if someone is a transgendered woman, they're a woman. They might be a bigger woman, they might be a more robustly bodied woman, but that person is still a woman. And if we're going to have gender divisions in sports, then we need to acknowledge that women are women. They didn't have divisions in sports when I was growing up between small boys and tall boys. That would have helped me enormously. And I don't know that that's necessarily the right thing to do in this case either.
All right, thank you. And then Dr. Matthews, your summation, please.
And I think what the rabbi mentions just highlights the complexity of the topic. And I'll go back again to the Equality Act. And there's a phrase, misgendering, and I think people are being threatened to be terminated because they may refer to a transgendered woman as he rather than she. And I think it just opens up a world of, and if we're not met with it right now, right in our faces, it's coming down the pike. In relation to the Galatians passage, I think the statement, neither male nor female, must be understood in the in terms of eligibility for salvation, because when you look at the context, it talks about baptism and faith.
All right, thank you very much. Reverend Plumley, your turn. Summation, please.
I've been sitting here trying to figure out how I'm going to cap off this conversation. This has been a very interesting conversation, and I'm glad we're talking about it. I think as a fan, I might get really upset about this issue if I have a particular women's team or woman that I'm a fan of. If it was my daughter, I don't have any daughters, but I do have a granddaughter. As a parent or grandparent, I might have a different position on this. But as a voice for the church, I find myself in a different place and want to stand up and say, first, we got to talk about equal rights for trans folk, for them to feel comfortable in the community, no matter what kind of activity is going on.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to each of you for being here today, and thank you for tuning in. Agree or disagree, this is the American Religious Town Hall meeting. And as we say in the charter, it is this: the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy, and the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And by the way, I think, panelists, you've done this very well today in particular. And so now, friends, until next week, at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.